All right, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, part of life that we all have to encounter are the low points. This could be the loss of a loved one, losing a job, a breakup or divorce, going into debt, or seeing yourself as a failure. It is likely that you have experienced some of those hardships out of these options. On the bright side, there is always room to grow, time to bounce back, and opportunities to create the life that you truly desire. As Brian Tracy once said, your life only gets better when you get better, and you can improve yourself without limit. Well, our guest today did exactly that. Sergio Nazzaro found himself in $12,000 of debt, making just 24 grand a year 5 years ago. He finally left a job to take a pay cut to $0. And you might think that sounds crazy, and to some, it is. Sergio took the route of entrepreneurship, where he went all in on himself in business and made his first million within 24 months. However, his life started to slip. His relationship with his then fiance almost came to an end, and his mindset took another change, realizing that you can have it all in this life, all while creating the business to support the life of your dreams and build prosperity. Sergio is on a mission to help other entrepreneurs become great in all areas of their lives. I'm very grateful to have Sergio with me today. Welcome to the Define Success podcast.
Dude, thank you for having me. That was quite the intro. I loved it.
Absolutely. Yeah. No doubt. So I'm very excited to have you here, talk about your story, talk about success, just get your perspective on everything. So can you start with, how did your career start? You're making 24 grand a year, you're carrying debt. Did you always imagine yourself in a situation like this 5 years ago?
No, it's interesting. You repeat the patterns of the things that were shown to you as a child, right? The whole reason I ended up in this scenario was I got out of the military after serving in it for 11 and a half years. And I had like this massive identity crisis. I'm struggling with PTSD because I just got back from Afghanistan. I had no clue what I wanted to do. And so I'm just sitting there trying to make the transition. I'm racking up credit card debt after being told that I'm supposed to be the cream of the crop, the best of the best. And so I'm sitting there being like, how the hell did I get here?
Yeah.
And it was not what I had imagined, especially after like a great career as an officer in the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you for your service. I didn't know you were in the Air Force. That's great. But it's a tough transition to make. I can imagine. I feel like it's similar to like a student going into the workforce for the first time. You have all this time where, like you said, you're an officer and you have all these accomplishments, all this notoriety, and then what do you expect to do after? And there's not many guidelines, a set standard of what you should be doing, and people just fall to whether it's poor habits or they just don't know exactly what to do. I just came out of college, and I can see why some people would go down a path like that, because you're just not taught life lessons in life, really, and you have to go through it yourself. So I completely see where you're coming from, and it's a very relatable place for a lot of people.
yeah, and I think I think when you take it a step above that, right? It's this moment where you hit a crossroads, and that could
Mm-hmm.
be a midlife crisis. That could be the transition from graduating from college and going into the workforce, the military, going from not being a parent to being a parent. Like
Yeah.
there's all these moments in life where you come upon this threshold on this crossroad, and it really kind of can define you or refine you or you are as an individual. But I think they're very common. And I think a lot of times we only see them at certain points in our life, but they happen pretty regularly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how do you attack that process? Like, what is the best course of action when you're at those crossroads to put yourself in the best position? Because it can be stressful. It can be a lot of anxiety, not knowing what to do. Do you have any tips for how to get past that?
I think the things that worked for me and the things that I try to guide my clients into doing is like, what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy for us to figure out what we don't want. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be in a bad relationship. I don't want to insert whatever the answer is. A lot of times everybody knows what they don't want, but they never know what they actually want. And so I think first and foremost, you have to get clear on that.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want in your life, right? What do you want in your job and your career and your relationships, not only just in somebody else, but in yourself? And so I think getting clear in that, and then like rooting yourself in the foundation of where you're at today,
Mm-hmm.
and like being honest with yourself about that. So one, getting clarity on what you want. Two, getting clear on where you're at today and understanding like, this is just my starting point. But before, like, I think that's a really big part that a lot of people miss out on because they never even take the time to do that. And so they're just chasing something that they don't even know if they want to chase.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree. I think you just need a lot of
Yeah.
self inventory of what it is you want to do, what direction you want to go. Because if you're just wandering around aimlessly, like, it's hard to get to your destination. And for you, at one point when you were in the credit card debt, you were making $24,000 a year, and you got to a point where you wanted to make a transition. When did you say enough is enough? I need to change something in my life. What was the circumstance there?
But we started recording, I was telling you about this poster right here, right? This
Yeah.
Coachella poster. And I'll never forget, like we're sitting there and I think it was 2015. I just got out of a breakup. I was in a bad spot, right? I was managing all of the emotions, feelings, and everything that comes with post-traumatic stress syndrome, right? After getting out of a combat arena. And I'm at Coachella and I am balls high on Molly. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, this can't be it.
Yeah.
Like, this can't be why I'm here on this planet. And I was like, there has to be more than this. And this was on the back end of like heavy partying, heavy substance abuse. And I was just like, yo, like, I got to put myself in check here because I wasn't raised this way. And then two, I'm just sitting there being like, I know I have all this potential, but this isn't going to get me there. I need to make some like radical changes. And it was in that moment, which I'm surprised that can happen when you're in the thick of it, right? But it's in that moment that I was like, all right, I gotta make some adjustments. And so when I got back from that is when I started to get into therapy. When I got back from that, it was really me taking inventory on the people that were in my life. And when I got back from that moment, it was really like, okay, cool. What do I want to do? And so I think for me, I had to hit rock bottom, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have you're in this position where you're not making any money. So you're doubting your self-worth. You're in this position where you're really not living into your fullest potential. And you just see the path in front of you and you have to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful. And it, like you said, hitting rock bottom, sometimes it's what it takes for some people to make that next step. For you, with the drugs and everything, was that something that when you're getting off of it, you're trying to create a better life? Was there any sort of like withdrawal? Like, did you ever want to go back to old habits, or was it, hey, I need a better life and I'm going to do everything that I can to get there?
I wish it was that clean,
Yeah.
right? I wish it was one of those things where I was just like, I came back and I was like, no more drugs, no more drinking, but it wasn't. It just wasn't. And I think it was more one of those things where like, okay, I need to dedicate more time to the things that I know make me better.
Yeah.
And I just found therapy, right? And I think therapy is really powerful. I had just really gotten into journaling and meditation. And what I realized was like, it was simply exploration of myself. And so the reason I didn't fully get out of like doing drugs and stuff like that is because there is this exploration of that. Now, I'm not recommending that people go down this path being like, oh, this bald-headed guy said, I want to find myself, I should start doing drugs. But what I am saying is that like there was this part of it where I was like, okay, cool. I'm learning a lot about myself in this. But I think the biggest switch was just like, who am I hanging out with? Like that was night or day. Like I came back, I was like, I think it was like a mutual thing there. Like, you're not really who we want because you're kind of going your own direction. I was like, you're not really where I want to go. And so we just went our own separate ways. And it was really around who I was surrounding myself with.
I think that's a big fear for a lot of people. They might know that they have negative people in their lives or toxic people, but a lot of people fear, in my opinion, how to get away from them because they're like, oh, it's my lifelong friend. Maybe it's a family member or maybe it's a coworker you see every day and you just struggle to disassociate yourself with that person. How was that experience for you? It seemed like it kind of was just a mutual parting ways. Was there any fear behind it? How did you best go about saying, you don't align with what I want to do right now? Maybe we need to, separate and I need to move on to bigger and better things.
It was actually pretty traumatic. Right. And so like all the things that you're talking about, all those things came to fruition.
Yeah.
Because what happens is like, I'm making this decision to try to better myself. And so I basically broke from the herd. And in breaking from the herd, like now I was just like, and there was no judgment for me looking back and being like, hey, do you guys want to do drugs and go party all the time? Right. Like, I'm not judging you for it. I just don't want to do it. But in breaking from that herd and simply like disrupting it a little bit, it rubbed people the wrong way. And so now it was just like, well, fuck you. Like and them saying that to me, they're like, well, if you don't want to fall in line, then we don't really want you to be a part of this. Yeah. And overnight, they were all gone. Like overnight, they were all gone. And so then you're sitting here being like, did I pick the right path?
Yeah.
Right. Am I doing the right thing? And that's why getting clear on what you want is important, because you're going to get tested.
Yeah. That's a big
and
test
so
right there.
It's a huge test. Now, luckily it played out the way I wanted it to, and it's still playing out the way I want it to. But in that moment, like that fear of like losing everybody and being like, okay, well, this is just a group of friends that I lost. And then you really have to find your tribe and your inner circle and build that and nourish those relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very scary, but I think it was a catalyst that put me in the position to even start to have conversations like the one we're having.
Absolutely. And there's definitely a transition period in between those for you. There's one end of the spectrum where you were hanging out with the people that were doing drugs, partying. And then there's the other end where you get around people that are more business minded, oriented, your inner circle that's going to be a bigger and better positive impact on you. But in between there, I'd imagine there's going to be time, whether it's a couple of days or a couple of years, where you feel alone and you don't have that support system to lean on. You mentioned therapy. What are some other things, or maybe if you want to get deeper into how therapy helped you when you felt alone, when you were trying to find not only yourself, but your other group to associate yourself with? How did you find that identity within a group?
First, I had to find my own identity.
Mm,
That, I mean, that is like, you know, I talked to you about getting out of the military and having this identity crisis, like 11 and a half years of serving this country. Right. And I get out and now all of a sudden I don't fully know who I am anymore.
yeah.
So I turn to these other things. I'm like, well, that's not me. And so therapy is simply, right. You're forced to look in the mirror.
Mhm.
You're forced to answer questions. But the tool that I found to be the most impactful was to journal,
Mm,
right? To start to really explore, like, well, why do I feel the need to walk away from this group? Why do I feel this calling
yeah.
to elevate the way I'm living? And it was questioning myself. And in that questioning of myself, I was able to understand more about me.
Mhm.
And the more I understood about me and the more that I got clarity on who I am, the more confidence I was able to build in myself. And now, when I was able to show up, now I was attracting the right people into my life.
Mhm.
But you're right, there is this big transitionary period where you don't know who you are. So how can you find the identity you want in a group of friends? And so one, it was me creating the identity for myself, like recreating it, or maybe should I say uncovering it, because it's always been there. And then two, I went from trying to just hang out with anybody to really benchmarking myself with people that I wanted to be like, people that were good husbands, people that were good dads, people that were good friends, brothers, you name it. And I think that's who I've really started to gravitate towards.
Yeah, that's big. Did you find the most inspiration from people that you knew directly? Did you lean on books or podcasts or speakers? How did you find those influences in your life?
All of those, right?
Yeah.
So I think in the very beginning, you look external, right?
Mhm.
You're looking to books and to podcasts and to friends and to therapists and to coaches, right? I
Mhm.
got a coach. And I think all of those are really important because they're just helping you see the playing field differently. They're helping you see maybe some of your blind spots or who you are as an individual.
Mhm.
I mean, have you ever been in a position where like you're doubting yourself? Maybe when you started this podcast, you're
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I don't know if this can, right? But there's other people that are like, yo, dude, you're doing it. Good work.
Mhm.
Like keep at it. And so you have to have those people to help guide you through it. And I think eventually those external forces allow you to build a really strong foundation. And
Mhm.
then immediately it's about going inward.
Yeah.
So what I've realized is like I have all the answers now that I need inside me. All of those mentors and coaches and podcasts and external factors simply gave me the perspective to realize like, oh, I just need to
Mhm.
go this way instead of that way.
Yeah. Just some extra validation. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Did
100%.
How has the military helped with all of this? You have a military background, served for 11 and a half years. Did you find anything while you're in the service as far as the discipline, the leadership that you were using in this transition period, or maybe now in your life as a business owner that has helped you get to a better, more clear sense of identity?
Yeah, I think there's definitely the discipline aspect of it, right? The
Mhm.
military is really structured. And I think structure doesn't allow for expansion and growth,
Okay.
right? But discipline, right? Like discipline is just like a commitment to yourself, right? Discipline, whether it's forced upon you or whether you choose to have it in your life, right? It's this vehicle that you can lean on that's not emotional. So when you don't
Mhm.
feel like doing it, you lean on discipline, and discipline helps carry you through.
Okay.
So I think the military taught me a lot about that, to be disciplined in the way I carry myself, be disciplined in my actions, be disciplined in my work ethic, right? Which has carried over really well into not only personal growth, realizing that I have to be disciplined with controlling my mind, disciplined in what I put into my body, disciplined with the people I hang out with. So I think that was a really, really important thing. And that's also carried over into my business. I think another part about the military is leadership. Not only seeing good leaders, like really, really good leaders, but also seeing really shitty ones. Mm-hmm. Right. And just knowing that not everybody who's in a leadership position is a leader, and not everybody is cut out to be a leader. But there's also this really beautiful thing of like, when you see the leadership, right, of like the decisions these men and women are making, and you're like, the way you are carrying yourself, the way you articulate your message, the way you're concise and the way you're empathetic, like rolling all of that into, and you're just like picking pieces from everybody, that the experiences you have with these different leadership things. And so now you have this skill set that you're working on. Yeah. And that's all about external leadership. But the one thing I thought about, like, I want to take those things and be able to turn them inward and lead myself. Because if I can't lead myself, I can't lead anybody else. Yep. At least in my experience. Yeah. So I've really tried to take some of those leadership experiences that I've had and apply them to me and figure out what works for me. If it doesn't work, then I simply remove it. If it does work, then I double down on it and really start to sharpen that skill set.
That's good. Yeah, it's very good advice. And the discipline and the leadership skills that you have are super crucial for entrepreneurship, the role you're in right now. And you are living the dream of many, many people in the world right now, because there's more than ever, people want to be entrepreneurs. They want to start their own business. They have ideas. Maybe they don't have an idea, but they like the idea of being their own boss and starting something. Tell us about your business. How'd you get started, and why were you willing to throw away a career to go down to zero and start something fresh on your own?
Yeah. Talk about inward leadership, about connecting with yourself, figuring out what you want. You know, I'm sitting here in this job, and this is prior to becoming an entrepreneur. I'm like, all right, well, I'm doing what I said I wanted to do, right? Mm-hmm. I'm being a personal trainer. And then I went to become an account manager for this tech company. I'm like, this is sweet, right? Like, I'm loving this. But there's always just like something was off. Yeah. And so, you know, I had spent like months in meditation and journaling, and then like in active meditation and yoga. And I kept just asking myself the same question, like, what do I want? Come back to what I said, what do I want? And I'll never forget, in this moment in a yoga class, I was sitting there. I can't remember what the hell I was doing, but there was this silence. And in that silence, I simply heard my grandfather say, just go for it. Wow. And I went in the next day and I quit my job. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people would be like, bullshit. That sounds like woo-woo. Okay, cool. But what I would have you consider, like, what if that was simply like me connecting to my truest self and hearing my calling, and in knowing that calling, then I was able to take action. Because without that moment, I don't know that I would have stepped into this and took that pay cut for all the pain that I had to go through. Mm-hmm. Right? All the pain I am going through, right? And pain in a good way, because it's by design and growing your own business. But I think that was the decision where I was like, I want to be in the pursuit of my truest calling. Yeah. And that's when I made the decision to go from security to no security and being out on my own and starting to grow my first business, which was in real estate. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. So hearing your grandfather's voice, was that all of the confidence, all the validation you needed? Was there still any doubt? Like, can you walk us through, was that just all you needed to walk into your job and say, hey, I'm done? You know?
I think it was knowing that I had spent the time exploring this. Mm-hmm. Right. I had asked the question. I had run the situations in my head. I had talked to some people, right? I was looking for some external perspective. Yeah. But really what it came down to was, I just asked myself, like, what do I want? Like, where do I want to be at the end of my life? Do I want to know that I played it safe? Or do I want to know that I pursued something relentlessly? Yeah. And I was like, I think that the other frame that I kind of came up to was, do you want to bet on this company, or do you want to double down on yourself? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'll take me 10 out of 10 times. Like, I know that for a fact. Now, that's not to say that when I stepped into entrepreneurship and started to go down this path, that there wasn't self-doubt. I mean, I didn't sell a home, Matt. I didn't sell a home for the first 7 months. Mm-hmm. Right. And luckily my fiance was super supportive, but like, right. Month 1, right. You're riding the high. You're like, oh, this is awesome. Yeah. Working on my own.
Crush it.
Crushing it. Month 2, you're like, all right, just part of the process, trust the process, right? Mm-hmm. All these cliches that I'm telling myself. Month 3, right? I'm like, shit, I haven't made any money in 60 days. I better update my LinkedIn, right? Yeah. Month 4, still no deals, right? Now I'm like, okay, maybe I better start searching for another job. And then I get to this point where I hear I hire a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And the coach starts talking about how if you have a plan B, you don't have a plan.
Mm.
And I was like, okay. And he tells me the story about burning the boats. Are you
Ships,
familiar
yeah.
with that story?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so that was it. I got back home. I deleted my LinkedIn. I deleted my resume. I was
Wow.
like, I'm going all in on this. Right. And I was like, if I fail, I'm gonna go down swinging. And luckily, my wife, or fiance at the time, she was like, girlfriend at the time,
Mm-hmm.
she was like, yeah, I believe in you. Right. And I needed somebody else to tell me that they believed in me, because at
Yeah.
that point I wasn't believing in myself.
So important.
And then by month 7, I got my first home under contract.
That's
Right.
amazing. Mm-hmm.
The next week, 3 homes under contract. The next week, 5 homes under contract. And by the end
Wow.
of the next 6 months, I'd sold 31 homes.
Let's go. That's
And
amazing.
I was just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
None of this would have happened though if I had been straddling the line.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So no, it wasn't just like I heard my grandfather's voice and it's been all like rainbows. No, there's
Mm-hmm.
been a lot of struggles along the way, a lot of struggles.
Yeah. Wow, that's fantastic. It's a perfect story for people that might be struggling right now with not seeing immediate results. What would you say to someone who, let's say, I think a lot of people obviously in society gravitate towards a salary job or a minimum, or not minimum wage, but a hourly job. They want that instant gratification every single week, hits their bank account. For you, you went 7 months, 6 months without seeing any sort of return, but then it all paid off tenfold, hundredfold, whatever. What recommendations would you have to someone for going down that uncommon path and delaying that gratification for more of a long-term play?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's really going to be about the risk tolerance of the individual.
Yeah.
I gave you an example of me going all in,
Mm-hmm.
right? I very well could have built this off on the side, got a little bit of traction, a little bit momentum to it, and then been like, all right, we're in a good spot. Let's cut the cord and go. And I think that's a really great way to go about it as well.
Yeah.
But I think it comes back to, okay, what do you want? Okay, I want to be an entrepreneur. Why?
Mm-hmm. It's a great
Why
question.
do you want to do this? Right? Is it for the money? Nothing wrong with that. Chase a paycheck, get rich as hell. That's fine. Or is there like some type of other motivation that's coming along with it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Month 7 is when I realized that the reason I got into this is my parents got taken advantage of by a real estate agent. That's why we
Really?
ended up homeless. And ending up homeless, my parents couldn't pay for college. That's why I had to go to the Air Force Academy, because they weren't going to be able to pay for college.
Wow.
That sent me down this whole path. That's what put me in that field at Coachella, look at my face because I was high on Molly, right? Making the decision that this isn't what I want in my life anymore.
Yeah.
It all played out the way it was supposed to, but that's when I got really clear on my why. And that just happened to coincide when things started to take off. So if you're going to go down the path, I think one of the biggest things that you can do for yourself is, what do you want? Why do you want it? And what is it going to get you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's powerful. And why is probably my favorite question. It can be used anytime, anywhere. It's just a very valid, just give me more information. It's something I ask myself a lot. And it was a book I was reading a long time ago. I forget exactly what the title was, but I will always remember the topic of ask the question why, and then do it again and again and again. And like you're saying, when you're talking about a goal or why you want to do something, you might be asking yourself why like 10, 20 different times until you can finally get to the real reason. And you write down like, okay, why do I want to start my own business? Because of this. Why do I want to get into real estate? Because of this. And you're making this whole list until you finally say, it's because my parents are taken advantage of. Bingo. That's all you need. And you figured out, because of all those whys, this is why I'm doing something. And I think when you finally figure that out and you finally figure out the real reason behind your motives, you're unstoppable, because there's a lot of people out
Yeah.
there. They try to start something. It's for, I just want to make some money. There's no real motive behind it. There's no real reason to help someone, to prove yourself right, prove other people wrong, whatever that looks like. It's just, make some money, increase the bank account. It could work for some people, but it's so much more powerful when there's a real big reason behind it.
100%. And Matt, I'm going through it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I started my own coaching company called Become the Standard.
Yeah.
And the reason I started this is because all of the relationship problems, all of the business problems that came along with me being successful in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so now my why is, I know the impact of I know what happens when there isn't a presence of a father in a home. Right. Luckily, I had a father, right, which I'm super grateful for, and he raised me really well. But the data shows you The data will show you what happens. And I just had my kid a year ago. We just celebrated his birthday. I refuse to have him grow up in a fatherless home. And fatherless could simply mean being emotionally unavailable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's the why. And so now I'm going through the same process, asking myself, well, why? Why do I want to do this? Why? Because like to leave this level of business that I've been operating at for the last 5 years and to start all over simply because this why is now stronger than this why, people think I'm fucking crazy. But to me, I'm playing the game I was always meant to play. I just now have the perspective of why I'm doing it.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I love that right there. A lot of people, Sergio, are afraid of the fear of success. They're afraid of what could happen to them if they become successful. People think of them differently. They might make too much money and become too material focused. When you made your first million, took you about 2 years, what changed in your life? Did anything get better? Did anything get worse? What was the change that occurred once you started to create real good income for yourself and your family?
Yeah, I got super insecure about a lot of shit.
Okay.
I think to your point, right? Like, I make this money and now like I'm afraid to tell people about how successful I am.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And not even in a flaunting way, right? It's just like it comes and now I'm like, well, what do I do with this? Because like I might be one of the first people in my family to be in the position I'm in.
Yeah.
And so what comes from that? Well, there's this level of like, okay, do I play it small and kind of like sugarcoat this because I don't want to offend anybody? And then I realized, well, that's not fucking doing anybody any type of service.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, me playing it small is simply hiding my light. And by hiding my light, I'm not showing people what is possible.
Yep.
Right. So there's this there was this moment where I was like, listen, I can look at this one of two ways. I can be insecure about what I've done, or I can simply say, if I can do it, why can't you?
Mm-hmm.
If you want it. And so you can use it to inspire others. And so I think there was this real part of like, it almost felt like I was imposter syndrome. Like, who am I? I didn't know who I was, right? We talked about the identity crisis I had coming out of the military. And now I have this new one where I'm like, I've had this success, but like, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized like, oh, money doesn't do anything. It just magnifies more of who you are. If you were an asshole to begin with, you're going to be a bigger asshole now.
Yeah.
But if you're somebody who genuinely loved, cared, and operated a certain way, it's just going to magnify that. And so I've tried to take that success and give back all the lessons and all the mess ups I've made to help people compress their confidence and compress their confidence timeline so that they can have it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. If you kept all that bottled up about your success, your mindset, the message you have for other people, it'd be doing a disservice for everyone. Like, I think we're in agreement there based on what you said. And it's something that keeps me going, something that keeps me inspired of, if this message, if I wasn't interviewing right now and people couldn't hear this interview, it's a disservice for everyone because they're not hearing your story. They're not hearing what you have to say and be inspired by you just saying right now, if I can do it, you can do it. So it's a powerful message for anyone. Like, if you start to find success in anything, or maybe you're starting a journey of something, share it with other people. This could be on social media. This could be talking to friends, talking to family. For you, starting a coaching business is huge for people that are looking for guidance, looking for an inspiration, looking just to see what's possible. Because there's a lot of people out there that just, they feel lost. There's a lot of people like, listen to this podcast. It's called Define Success. They don't know what success means. So how can we get there without people like you talking about what it actually means? So I appreciate you putting that in there for us.
Yeah, I thank you. And I think like coming back to kind of the whole topic, like defining success.
Mm-hmm.
Success is going to look different for me than it is for you. There might be some overlap, right? But you have to define what success looks for you, like what it looks like for you in this season.
Mm-hmm.
Because success, when I first started, looks very different than what success looks like now. And my success could look like a prison to somebody else, and your success could look like a prison to me.
Yeah.
And so like define it for like what it means to you across all domains of your life, not just in business.
Yeah, for sure. In this season of your life, what does success look like for you?
It's this constant balance between living into my fullest potential as a coach and making sure that I am fully present for my family. I told you, like, we just celebrated my son's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend ask me, they're like, what's been your most emotional birthday? Like when you turn 21 or when you turn 30, you're about to be 40,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is that emotional for you? I was like, no. The most emotional birthday that I've experienced was my son Luca's birthday, which happened on Sunday. And it was because I saw how fast time goes by.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just interesting that like right now, success for me is one, making sure that this coaching company impacts people and helps people accelerate their results that they're trying to get in their life.
Yeah.
And then two, that I lead the way I live, that I'm a good father, I'm a good husband, I'm a good business owner, and I'm a good person.
Mm-hmm.
So that I become the beacon of light for other people.
Yeah. It's
Not for
crucial.
everybody. Some people are going to listen to this and be like, fuck that guy. And then some people are going to listen to this and be like, that's my guy.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's simply just speaking to those people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not going to please everyone for sure. Sergio, you've mentioned your family a few times in this podcast. I mentioned in the bio that when you started your business, things weren't great between your fiance at the time, she's now your wife. What was going on during the first stages of that, the business when you started it, with your relationship, and how did you fix it and now have a happy, healthy family together?
Yeah, man, that's been quite the journey. You know, when you start down this path of running your own business, of entrepreneurship, there's a lot of stressors that come along with it.
Mm.
Not just the power, not just the capacity that is required to build something from scratch, right? But also the stress that comes along with the money that is either being made or not being
Yeah.
made. And so, you know, my wife and I, we get engaged, and we plan our wedding, and then we call it off.
Mm.
We called off the wedding because we were fighting so much. And, you know, we then got into couples therapy, and we got into couples therapy because we were committed to the relationship. But it was in those moments, right? Like when Lizzie and I were struggling, Lizzie's my wife, when we were struggling, it had such a massive impact on my success as an entrepreneur, because you only have a limited amount of power and capacity on any given day. Now you can work to expand that, right? But when your relationship is suffering and all you're trying to focus on, right, is growing the relationship, I have very little space, very little power, very little capacity to then head into a client meeting and hold the space for them as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when Lizzie and I really started to hit our stride was when we made a commitment to what do we want? Well, we want to be together. Well, why do we want it? Well, we get along well, we love each other, and so we want to make the relationship work. We got clear on both of those. Once we started doing the work, right? Both individual therapy, couples therapy, dating one another, making the time and effort, when the relationship became like just really in a great spot, my business took off.
Yeah. Nice.
And I think there's a really big correlation between those two. You can be successful in your business and have a shitty relationship. There's plenty of guys and gals who do it,
Yeah.
right? But that's going to be an expensive way to go, because you're going to get a divorce and you're going to lose half of the whatever you made, right?
Yep.
There's this other part too, where like, if you can have a really just like deep connection with your wife and your kids, or your husband and your kids, your business, you can step into that knowing that everything at home is secure. You've made the daily investments there, and now you can focus the energy that is required to grow the business because you have the support at home. And when you have both of those, it's really hard to not be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're talking about that support, how do you find the right person? I think this is a very underrated topic for young entrepreneurs about dating or marriage, because there's many people out there that they might not understand what path you're going on, or they don't understand your goals. They can't relate to them. They might not support them. So for you, like, what qualities did you look for, or what was a non-negotiable maybe in a relationship? And this goes for the ladies too. Listen to this. Like, what could they look for in a guy that they want to date, that they want to marry, if they want to go, achieve all these goals in life, but they don't want someone holding them back, or someone that's just going to not support what they're looking for?
Yeah. And I think it is that mindset of like, is somebody going to hold you back, or are they going to support you? There's really honest conversations that have to happen in relationships to make sure that they're going to work. One of the first things that Lizzie brought up to me, she goes, I want to have kids. I never wanted kids, not once in my entire life, ever. And she's like, well, if we're going to be together and we're going to move forward, I need to know that you want kids. And so it was a very direct conversation with me. And I sat with it. And after a few days, I figured out, like, I do want kids because it's with her.
Okay.
In that same vein, we had a conversation about, I was like, listen, this is who I am. I was like, when you marry me, I just want you to know, like, there's common ground that we will find, but this is who I am at my soul, right? Like, this is what I want to pursue. These are the dreams that I have, right? And those dreams were around running my own business, working for myself, right? And really kind of growing as an individual. Self-growth and exploration was really big for me. I was like, I just need to know that, like, in the same way that we're aligned now with children, that you're going to be aligned with what I'm trying to do. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't call me on my shit. But what I am saying is that I need to know that you're going to support me and you're not going to try to change me.
Yeah, that's big.
And she was like, listen, I don't want you to be anybody but who you are. And I want you to change, because if you're not changing, that means you've never grown as an individual, which means we haven't grown as a couple. And so I think I just hit the jackpot, man, because, like, you know, I give her space to grow. She gives me space to grow, and we both support each other in what we're trying to accomplish. But I think it comes down to very direct conversations about what you want in your relationship. Yeah. And where does that all start? With you first understanding what you want for yourself.
Yep. It all goes back together. It's a beautiful thing. All right. So you saw $1 million in your business pretty quickly. What would it take for you to get to $1 billion?
There is a version of me in the future that is making a lot more money than I'm making now. Maybe it's $1 billion.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know what that number is, but it's a shit ton more money than I'm making right now.
Yeah.
My responsibility is to understand the state that man is in, the way he thinks, the way he operates, right? His habits, all of it. How does he live? I believe that future state of me is composed, calm, grateful, excited, happy, and curious. And the more that I can live in that state, the faster I can compress that timeline and be the man that is required to make $1 billion.
Yeah.
Because I'm not that man right now. And yet I am that man. I just simply have to uncover it. And so I think there is this relentlessness of me tracking down that individual and making sure that I am in that state. And the longer I'm in that state, the faster that success comes. But I think it takes this dedication, this discipline, and this desire for self-exploration that has to take precedence over everything else.
Yeah, for sure. Are there any things you do on a daily basis right now that you could share that you're doing to get to that next identity, that person that's making a lot more money? Are there any habits?
100%.
Yeah.
I got this thing called the Core 4.
Okay. What's that?
So there's 4 domains in my business: your body, your being, which is your connection with yourself and your higher power, your balance, which is your connection with your partner and your kids or the closest people in your life, and then your business. And so every day, right, I get 1 point, or I get half a point for each one of these. In my body, right, I get half a point for working out every single day. Working out could look like anything, right? It could be a walk, it could be a CrossFit workout, or it could be an ultra marathon. I don't care what you do. And then I get a half a point for the fuel that I put into my body, because fuel creates the energy that I need, right? For me, it's a green smoothie. The other part, right, is for your balance, right? I get a half point for meditating, usually about 20 minutes a day in the morning. And then I get a half point for journaling. I call it stacking, because it's a series of questions that you go through. And that's simply to take up the meditation allows me to connect with myself. Things come up. I've had plenty of business ideas that have come up in my head that have turned into a very lucrative source of income for me. Yeah. I've also had emotions that have come up, but those things that come up, then I get it down on paper in that stacking and journaling to really like solidify what that is, and then identify the actions I need to take out of that. So body, you get 1 point. Being, you get 1 point. For balance, it's daily deposits into the people I love, right? Maybe it's a love note to my wife. Maybe it's a letter that I've written to Luca. Maybe it's a voice text to people wishing them a happy birthday and letting them know how grateful I am. But I do 2 of those, right? So person 1 and person 2. So that's 3 points right there. And then the last one for my business, I spend, it could be 5 minutes, it could be 30 minutes reading something that's going to either impact my mindset or my business. Yeah. Once I take that, then I declare it. Usually that's me going live on Instagram to give my message out to whoever it is. If you can teach it, you know it. And so out of those, you get 4 points. And that's what I call the Core 4. You walk away with that not only have you built up power and the capacity in yourself, but you're also exploring yourself. You're investing in your relationships. Like it covers everything.
Yeah. That's amazing. What happens on days that you don't get all four?
I'm on a hot streak right now, dude.
Yeah.
130 days in a row.
That's
But
amazing.
what I will say is like, so today my alarm didn't go off. Right. And so I wasn't able to do my meditation or my journaling this morning. I feel off.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm the best version of myself. Now, I would then question, is this routine actually serving me or is it inhibiting me? Because if I don't do it, now I feel less. I don't feel the same power and capacity. What I will say is like, that's just simply a data point, right? So I'll still get it in, right?
Yeah.
I'll get it in after we get off this podcast. But on the days that I don't, I just try to be more aware of how I'm responding. Am I a little more sharp tongued?
Mm-hmm.
Am I anxious? Right? Do I feel like less power and capacity for the things I need? Right? Do I have the capacity to get on a podcast, hop off this, go to a showing, hop off this, get on a coaching call, hop off this, have another meeting?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll find out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're playing at a little bit of a deficit today. But I think it's just simply just being aware of those things and being like, okay, cool. I feel the best when I do these. How can I make them a priority?
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely important. And just to understand what those effects can be. So then now, if you wake up tomorrow and you're like, damn, I do not want to get up, I'm super tired. Like, okay, I saw what it did to me yesterday. Maybe I wasn't at my best self. I wasn't as sharp as I wanted to be. That's why I need to get up and meditate. That's why I need to journal or work out. I think that gives a lot of people confidence with the morning routine, just knowing the effect and knowing how good it makes them feel when they actually do it properly.
And again, 100%. And it comes back to, why do you want that?
Yeah, for sure.
Because if you don't understand why you want it, you won't do it.
Yeah, it's pointless.
Right? 100%.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Sergio, what makes you successful, but other people not?
Confidence.
Okay.
I understand who I am and what I stand for. It's taken me a long time to get here, like a long time, a lot of work, but I know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people who don't like me and they've said things about me. I know this. I have trolls all over Instagram, right? They don't know me, right? Like, I know who I am. I know what I stand for. Like, get to know me, and then you can make an assessment. Mm-hmm. If you still think I'm an asshole after that, right, then you can make your assessment. But there's this deep-rooted confidence in that I know who I am today, and yet I have no clue who I am. And it's that exploration of me continuing to figure out and revealing more of who I am that gives me the confidence to know that I'm going down the right path. And so I think, in my experience, the people who are the most successful are the ones who have confidence in themselves. And when they don't, they know how to create it simply by getting into action.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great right there. And I love how you mentioned that there's people out there that don't like you, because it's a fact, in my opinion, that if you don't make someone upset, or if your opinions don't upset some people, you're doing something wrong. You're not standing for anything. You have no original opinion about anything. I mean, it's proven that when you look at, let's say, politics, it's pretty much divided down the line. There's 50% this side, 50% this side. You can't make everyone happy. It's impossible. Everyone's going to have their own side. If you look at a sports teams, you look at the NFL, there's 32 teams. If you like one team, 31 other teams are not going to like you. So there's always division, no matter what you do in business and relationships and voicing your opinion on social media. So I think once you get that confidence that you can actually say what you need to say, number one, people will not like you. It's just going to happen. But they can always unfollow. They can not buy your products, whatever it is. But you get a more genuine, organic community around you that actually stands for you and says, he's speaking the truth. He's speaking when I need to. I'm going to ride with him no matter what.
100%. And listen, I think this world needs more people to take a stance on whatever they believe in.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have to believe the same thing, but you got to take a stance.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And I think we lack that. We lack that quite a bit.
Yeah.
Right. And I wish I could say, be here. Yeah, especially right now. Mm-hmm. Like, there's so many issues going on that I'm just like, take a fucking stance. Mm-hmm. Right. And so people hem and haw around it and nobody ever says anything. And so that's why there's like, we lack leadership.
Yeah.
Because people are too afraid that they're going to get canceled or offend somebody.
Yep.
Who gives a fuck? Just take a stance.
Yeah, definitely agree about that. Before I get into my last question, can you plug your social media anywhere you want to be found after this?
I would say stick on Instagram, right? I tend to go on, Instagram live rants. I'm going to do one as soon as we get off here, right? But Instagram, my name's Sergio, Sergio.Nazzaro, Nazzaro.
Awesome. Everybody go make sure you check out him out after this. My last question for you. There's someone listening to this that needs advice. They need direction in their life. They want to achieve success, but they don't know how to get there. What is one piece of advice you leave that individual with today?
That's a great question.
Thank you. It's my favorite
Yeah.
one to ask.
You stumped me. I felt like I had an answer for everything else. What's one piece of advice I would give them? Be curious.
Okay.
Be curious about everything in your life. Because the reality is, like, if you approach things out of curiosity, you approach things from a beginner's mindset. And when you have that, you're willing to learn. You're willing to maybe question things about yourself, about society, about general rules, about everything. And if you're curious and you tap into something that you find that is invigorating to you, maybe it's about yourself, there's going to be this excitement that comes along with it. Mm-hmm. And when you have excitement and curiosity, that is the jet fuel that you need for growth.
Yeah.
And it's simply in that growth, right? As you rise and as you get perspective and as you get into action, it's impossible for you to not be, one, fundamentally a different person, but two, in being that different person, for you to not be successful in some capacity.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And if anyone is unsure on how to spark that curiosity, we talked about it before. Ask that question, why? Just see where it leads you. Sergio, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you, brother, for providing all this value, sharing your story and your perspective on success. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was wonderful.